So, it's good to be with everyone again. Yeah, I missed you all. It seemed like there was just one day where we weren't reading, and I kind of felt like I wasn't sure what to do with my time. It was a little strange, even though there was kirtan just last night. But I'm happy to be with you again. So, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I'm hoping that you all are having a happy beginning and middle to your day. Today is exciting. I think I now say that about every day. So what day isn't exciting? But today is really exciting for me. I'm sure I'll say that again. But just so that we're all in the right frame of mind and the right mindset, let's take a quick journey to the beautiful land of Vrindavan and sing Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Radha Madhava Radhe Govinda Jaya Radhe Govinda Shishi Radha Govinda Dev Ki Jai Shishi Radha Madhava Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So today's topic, I know the last time we were together I said we might read the piece Unbury Your Heart from Prema Mala, but somehow since then I've completely switched the entire schedule for this evening's storytelling and reading, and we'll do Unbury Your Heart tomorrow. Fingers crossed. I've switched the schedule because this is the Vedic month of Shravan, and during the month of Shravan Lord Siva is worshipped. So because I really, really adore Lord Siva, and he is constantly praised as the best friend of the Vaishnavas, as the foremost of Vaishnavas, as the best friend of Govinda, I thought we would discuss the glories of Lord Siva. Hi, Sina. It's good to see you. So why is Shravan Mas, the month of Shravan, so important? Well, there are a few things that happen. One very notable thing is that during this month, the churning of the milk ocean took place, which I spoke about 2 days ago. So I think it's 2 posts back. There was a lecture on how to turn the histories of Srimad Bhagavatam into realities in our lives. And that whole lecture was on the story of the churning of the milk ocean. So that, yeah, Sonam says that our best friend's best friend is our best friend. So that's true for us and Lord Shiva. He loves to help the Vaishnavas. So the churning of the milk ocean happens during the month of Shravan. And during this churning of this milk ocean, the first thing that comes out of the milk ocean is not nectar or gems or riches, but poison. Deadly halahala poison, which can disintegrate and dissolve the entire universe. So the demigods and the demons are in a panic and they don't know what to do. So they turn to Lord Vishnu, who is standing right there, and Lord Vishnu says, we should all go and seek the help of Lord Shiva. So along with all of the demigods, they all go and approach Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is so eager to help them all. And he speaks to his wife, Ambika, his wife Bhavani, and he says, "O Devi, just see the calamitous position that has overtaken the entire creation." And she has some reservations, but Lord Shiva kind of ignores all of them, and he says, if one can give their lives to help the devotees of the Supreme Lord, then I know my Lord will be pleased over and above everything else. So immediately, Lord Shiva jumps to the rescue, and he goes and he swallows all of the poison and he holds it within his throat, and he becomes Nilkant, one whose throat is blue. And this act of heroism that he takes on for the sake of all of the devotees, all of creation, they say it becomes his most beautiful ornament, his bluish throat. So that happens during the month of Shravan. So Lord Shiva is worshipped so much. Also, during the month of Shravan, later in August will be Janmashtami. And there is an interesting connection between baby Krishna and Lord Shiva. So I thought that I would start with the glories of Lord Shiva by also telling that story. So just not very long after Lord Krishna is born and is taken across the river to Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, Nanda Baba and Yashoda Rani have a huge festival for the birth of their son. For such a long time they had been wishing for a beautiful child, and now they have Krishna, the most beautiful of all beautiful children. And they hold a festival for him. And then when Krishna is about 3 days old, the witch Putana arrives to try and kill him. But Krishna somehow easily defeats this witch. And instead of defeating Krishna, she is killed. And then not long after that, Lord Shiva, who is observing all of this, very eagerly tells his wife, "Oh, I must go see my Lord. I must." And so she says, if you go to Braj Bhumi and you see Krishna, I want to go too. And he says, "Oh, but Devi, this will be such a short visit. You shouldn't trouble yourself to come for such a short visit." And so she says, but my Lord, I've heard so much about Krishna, and I've heard so much about his glories, and so much about how glorious and wonderful his pastimes are going to be. He says, but Devi, I'm just going to go quickly and come right back. She says, "Okay, but if you go, I've heard very much about the butter that these gopis make in the special village of Vrindavan. Just bring me back some small amount of butter." And Lord Shiva says, "No problem." He is so perfect that usually he's willing to do anything to make his wife happy. And that is an admirable and sweet quality. So Lord Shiva immediately begins to run and travel quickly to Braj Bhumi, to Vrindavan. And on the way, he thinks, maybe I should change my form so that I'd be more acceptable. And then as he nears the village in his eagerness, he thinks, never mind. My Lord will know me no matter what form I appear in. My worshipful Lord will know me no matter what. So he stays in his original form, with matted locks and snakes, scorpions, and his tiger skin. And he's majestic, but awesome in the terrific form of the word. So he arrives in Brajbhumi, and he's walking along, trying to find out where the house of Krishna is. And he sees the beautiful palace of Nanda Bhavan. And he goes there, and he calls out, Bhiksham Dehi, calls out for alms. Yashoda Maya hears inside, someone is calling. So she comes to the door and she sees this interesting looking mendicant. And she's never seen anyone quite like him before. And she says, yes, what can I do for you? What alms can I give you? Would you like grains, cows, gold? What can I do for you? He says, oh, no. I don't need anything of that sort. But I would like darshan of your young new baby. I would like to see your child, Krishna. And Yashodarani takes in the appearance of this gentleman with all of his accessories, which are quite unusual. And she says, ask for anything else, but not that. Lord Shiva is stunned. What do you mean, ask for anything else? There's nothing else that I want. I just want to see darshan of Krishna. Please, let me see the new baby. She says, no, I'm not doing it. You can't see him. I can only imagine the fear that is going through Mother Yashoda at this point. Just days ago, her son was kidnapped by an evil witch who looked nicer than this mendicant. So what to speak of? This unusual looking mendicant showing up at her door with snakes and all of these things, which are definitely cause for alarm. I am a city girl. If someone showed up at my door with snakes on, I would be alarmed. I have to say, I'm not sure I'd be able to stay calm. So Mother Yashoda flatly refuses. No, thank you. And Lord Shiva becomes more adamant. But you must. I have to see him. I came from so far. You have no idea the things that I've gone through just to come and see Krishna. You must allow me to see him. She says, no, it's not happening. I'm protecting my child. You can go away. And he says, well, I am prepared to stay outside your house for 10,000 years because you can't possibly wait me out. And Mother Yashoda says, I am prepared to close and lock my gates for 20,000 years. It doesn't matter how long you stay out there, my dear unusual Brahmin. I am not letting you see my child. I'm not bringing my child anywhere near you. Thank you. And she goes back inside the house. And Lord Shiva is stunned. He's heartbroken. He's come all this way from Kailash, and now he can't see Krishna at all. And so, he starts to go away. And he sits in a nearby place, and he sits under a tree, and he begins to lament, and he begins to cry. And some Vedic acharyas say that it is at this time that he's crying and lamenting, and he composes the raga known as Shivaranjani, which, if any of you have heard the raga of Shivaranjani, it's quite a tune of longing. So it's at this time that he's crying, and he's singing, and he's just thinking about Krishna. And inside the house, Krishna, understanding the situation, understanding that his dear devotee had come to see him but now has been turned away, Krishna begins to cry. And Krishna cries and is inconsolable. And so Mother Yashoda, she's rocking him, she's patting him, she's feeding him, she's making sure he's cool, she's making sure he's warm enough, she's making sure that he's nice and pacified, but Krishna won't stop crying. And he's getting more and more hysterical by the moment, and finally she's thinking, what has happened to my child? And so she is now in a panic, and she's thinking, what do I do? What is happening? And some of the gopis gave their opinion. Oh, Nandarani, what's happened to your Krishna? Krishna won't stop crying. I don't know what to do. I've tried everything. Huh. Well, has anyone left your house dissatisfied? Because that might be a cause. Now that this child has been exposed to some evil eye, the child has been exposed to some negative vibration, so now Krishna won't stop crying. I think this must be the cause. Mother Yashoda now thinks back to this strange-looking mendicant that she turned away who just wanted to see Krishna. And now she's in a quandary. What should I do? I really don't want to expose my child to this person. I mean, he has deadly snakes. Who's to say what he'll do with my child? He wants to see him and he's going to... I don't know. And so she's in a dilemma. What to do? But Krishna is inconsolable. He won't stop crying, and he's getting more and more upset by the minute. Yashoda Mai finally gives in. She picks up Krishna, and she starts looking for this mendicant. Okay, where did he go? And finally she arrives, hearing this mendicant's lamentation. She arrives at the tree where Lord Shiva is. She's fine. Oh, Brahman, I'm here. I'm here. And my child is here. And my child wouldn't stop crying. And so now I'm thinking that only you can bless my child. And Lord Shiva looks up. And there he sees the beautiful, adorable face of Sri Krishna as a baby, with his 2 lotus eyes and his sweet small nose. And now Krishna will stop crying, rubbing his eyes, which are now red. And he looks at Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva looks at Krishna. And he asks Mother Yashoda, may I hold him? And she reluctantly hands over her child. And Lord Shiva is in bliss, holding the Lord of his life on his lap now. Who can boast of such blessings? At no time has any other form been seen like this of our Supreme Lord. Now, in his original form of Krishna, he is now a baby, being held in the lap of Mahadeva himself. And Mahadeva begins to compose Gopal Sahasranam, 1,000 names of Sri Gopal. And he's beautifully extolling the glories of Sri Krishna. And Mother Yashoda is looking on, and she's thinking, okay, that's nice. Please bless my child, but also, please, could you watch your snakes and scorpions? My baby is very small. Please be careful, O sage, respectfully. And finally, Lord Shiva returns baby Krishna to his mother. And Mother Yashoda says, but now, my dear sir, you must stay in Vrindavan and bless my child always. Because my child stopped crying when you came here, you must stay and bless him at all times. And so, Lord Shiva expands himself, and he takes up residence right in that place, and he is called Asheshwar Mahadev. Lord Shiva, who is the Lord of fulfilling all desires. And why is this? Because it was at that spot that all of his choicest desires were fulfilled. But Lord Shiva also knows that he has a special mission. He must go back to Kailash. And so he says, Yashoda Rani, I must ask one small favor of you. Because I have heard so much about the yogurt and butter that is churned here in Vrindavan, might I just have a little to take back with me? And so she says, gladly. She goes and she brings him some of their butter in a small pot. And so Lord Shiva takes this pot back to Kailash. And on the way in Kailash, he's singing again the glories of Gopal. this small little Bal Gopal. And as he's singing the glories of Bal Gopal, he is tasting the butter that he has received from the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Now, as we know, he's supposed to be bringing back this butter for his wife. But he's tasting. He's tasting. He's tasting. And when he reaches back to Kailash, he looks in the pot and the butter is all gone. And so when he reaches Kailash, Parvati arrives and she says, "Oh my lord, what did you see?" And so Lord Mahadeva tells his wife everything that went on. And he extols the beautiful pastimes of baby Krishna. And then he recites again 1,000 names of Gopal. And she listens attentively. And then she says, "But Swami, I did ask for some of the butter from that place. Have you brought it for me?" And Lord Shiva has to confess to his wife that, "Devi, I did bring the butter. However, on the way from Vrindavan to Kailash, I ate it." And Parvati Devi gets upset. And she says, "I asked for one thing? Just one small thing? And you couldn't bring it back?" And so she pronounces a curse upon her own husband. And she says, "Because you denied me the Mahaprasad from these Brajabhumis, from this day forth, no one will take your Mahaprasad." So it's often acknowledged and seen that Vaishnavas do not take the Mahaprasad of Lord Shiva. But we can think of it and remember this beautiful pastime and the beautiful interactions between Lord Shiva and our own sweet Bal Gopal as best friends. So that is the story of Asheshwar Mahadev. Within the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the point is brought up that Lord Krishna is to be worshipped over and above all. And Maharaj Parikshit asks the question, but if this is the case, then how is it that we see such a discrepancy between those who worship these wonderful personalities like Lord Shiva and the other demigods, and those who worship Lord Hari? How do we see that this worship is going on? Furthermore, why do we see that some people prefer the worship of personalities like Lord Shiva over the worship of Lord Hari? How is this happening? And Parikshit Maharaj begins to explain. And he says, well, materialistic persons often will worship Lord Shiva because he is the Lord of material nature. And so he can give them whatever they want. Lord Krishna, who creates everything but has nothing to do with material nature, will not. And so often the opinion is had that those Krishna devotees, they're always steeped in poverty. Devotees of others might have some wealth and riches and opulences. Meanwhile, those Hare Krishnas, those Krishna devotees, they don't have so much. They're always wandering around asking questions like, "Oh Krishna, I worship you," but so many things happen. Meanwhile, there were people like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, so many big demons, Banasura. They were able to get great benedictions by worshipping Lord Shiva. But Lord Krishna gives you what you need, not what you want. And then Parikshit Maharaj says that sometimes the demigods, being obliged to give people the results of their materialistic desires, sometimes having to give those benedictions puts them in dangerous situations. And then he tells the story of the deliverance of Lord Shiva. And if anybody saw the picture that I posted about keep calm, we'll get back to reading, that picture comes from this story. So once, the evil-minded son of a great king called Shakuni, and I do not think it is the same Shakuni from the Mahabharata. It is a different one. But he had a son named Vrikashura. And this Vrika wanted opulence and power and blessings. But he thought to himself, who would be the best person to worship in order to gain these benedictions that I want? Narada Muni happened to be traveling, and he saw this Vrika. And so he said, my dear sir, what seems to be the problem? You seem to be engaged in some sort of dilemma, thinking, worshipping. And so Vrika says, I want all of these benedictions and I want power, but I'm not sure who to worship, Brahma, Vishnu, or Shiva. And Narada Muni says, well, Lord Vishnu is very powerful, but his devotees, they have to meditate for a long time. And I don't know even if they get what they ask for, and they're always praying for service and just, to please him and everything. I don't know if that's what you want. And so Vrika says, no. And he says, Lord Brahma is also powerful, but you have to do a lot of penance. And I'm not sure you want to do that either. Vrika says, absolutely not. I want to do the least amount and get the most. So Narada Muni says, I think Lord Shiva must be your best bet. He is very easily satisfied. And he often gives his devotees whatever they want. Maybe. I think it's him that you should worship. So with that determination, Vrika goes and he decides, I will worship Lord Shiva. Now, Lord Shiva is known as Ashutosh, easily pleased. Do we know what Lord Shiva is easily pleased with? He is easily pleased with Ganges water and bilva leaves. That is it. He requires nothing else for his worship. This demon decides to do the most. He's a little extra. So he says, I'm going to worship Lord Shiva, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a knife and I'm going to build a sacrificial fire, a yagya kund, and I'm going to perform my sacrifice, and I'm going to cut off pieces of my flesh and offer it into the fire. So he begins to cut off pieces of his flesh and offer it into the fire. And he does this for days and days. Finally, he gets upset. He says, for days I've been offering my flesh into the fire. Still Lord Shiva has not come. What is the deal? They told me he was easily pleased, but he's still not here. I want him to appear before me now. I have a wonderful idea. Tomorrow, if Lord Shiva doesn't come, I will offer my head into the fire. So he has to up the stakes, I'm not sure how he thought that would work. But he says, I'm going to offer my head into the fire. So the next day, he takes his bath, and without drying his hair or his body, he decides to essentially commit suicide. And just as he's prepared to cut off his own head, Lord Shiva arrives on the scene and says, stop! What are you doing? This is unnecessary. My dear fellow, I would have been just as pleased with a simple offering of Ganges water and bilva leaves. That's all I require. Please stop this nonsense. And it says that Lord Shiva puts his hand on his shoulder. And as Lord Shiva puts his hand on Vrika's shoulder, he cures him and completely eradicates all the pain. And he regenerates all of his skin. My brother, it says that Ravana cut off his own head. However, Ravana already had heads to spare. So unless you have heads to spare, it is not advisable for you to cut off your own head and offer it into the fire. Also, it seems to be foolish by even Lord Shiva's standards in order to cut your head off and offer it into the fire. It's completely unnecessary. None of the gods endorsed this practice. This was Vrikashura's own mentality. So, Lord Shiva heals him completely, rejuvenates him, and he says, now, what can I do for you? And Vrikashura says, I want a great benediction. And Lord Shiva has already come with the idea that he's going to grant this benediction. So Lord Shiva says, yes, what can I do for you? And Vrikashura says, I want the benediction that whoever's head I touch with my hand will immediately crack into pieces and that person will die. Lord Shiva's thinking, this is horrible. Who would ask for something like this? But he's bound now. Already this demon has performed his sacrifices and has performed his penance. And the thing about the demigods is once you've performed your penance, they become obliged to offer you what you're asking for. So although Lord Shiva is thinking, oh, how horrible this is disgusting, it's abominable, he's now also thinking, I've also already promised. So, Srimad Bhagavatam says that he vibrates the syllable Om, and then he gives the demon what he asks for. And the demon says, you know what I think? I think the perfect person to try this boon out on first would be your good self. Why would you then want to use this destructive boon on the person who just gave you the boon? This demon had the most demoniac mentality. So, he now runs after Lord Shiva. And he says, after I touch your head and I see if this boon works, then I can enjoy your wife. It's a great idea. So he runs after Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva runs all over the universe, speaking to many of the heads of creation. He goes to Lord Brahma. He goes to many people. Can you help me? And they're all silent. They're unable to do anything. Finally, Lord Shiva approaches his very own Supreme Lord on the island of Shwetadweep. And he approaches Lord Vishnu and he says, oh my Lord, please help me. And the Lord agrees. And the Lord, they say through his Yogamaya potency, he assumes the form of a young Brahmin brahmachari. And he looks at his new disguise, and he's very pleased with himself. And then he goes and speaks to this Vrikashura. Vrikashura is now chasing Lord Shiva, and he says, oh, my good sir, where are you going? And he says, oh, I'm running after Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva gave me a boon, that whoever's head I touch will immediately crack into pieces and he will die. And this Brahmin says, my dear son of Shakuni, whoa, slow down for a moment. Why don't you take a rest? I heard what you said, but it seems like you're in a hurry and maybe we should talk this out. And the Brahmin is so charming that Vrikashura can't help but listen to him. So they get into a talk. And this beautiful young brahmachari begins to extol the glories of Vrikashura's family. He says, you've come in a great line of demoniac rulers. And we all know that these rulers have conquered the universe and now you've gotten power just like these great rulers. Wow, this is amazing. And so then the Brahmin asks, but how did you say you got your power again? And Vrikashura says, oh, well, I got it by worshipping Lord Shiva. He gave me this boon that anyone's head I touch will immediately crack and he'll die. And the Brahmin begins to laugh a little. And Vrikashura is taken aback. What? Why are you laughing? This isn't funny. This is serious business. And the Brahmin says, I'm sorry. I just find the whole situation so comical. I can't believe that you got a boon from Lord Shiva that you trust. Why wouldn't I trust it? Well, Lord Shiva isn't exactly sane anymore. He had a quarrel with his father-in-law Daksha. And his father-in-law Daksha cursed him a long time ago to become the leader of the ghosts. And because he is the leader of the ghosts, he himself has become like a ghost. So he's crazy. You can't trust him. Also, his boons go a little haywire. And so Vrikashura is thinking, well, what should I do? This Brahmin says, I think it would be the smart, intelligent thing to do, to test out the boon. This Brahmin said, test? How am I supposed to test out the boon? He says, well, I think you could test it out on yourself. If you were to touch your own head, then you'd be able to see how much of a liar Lord Shiva is. And if he has lied to you, you should kill him immediately. And Vrikashura is thinking, yes, immediately. I should kill this liar. Yes, because we wouldn't want him going around giving false boons. You should test it out. And Vrikashura is thinking, yes, I will immediately test out this boon. And this wonderfully powerful demon touches his own head and is immediately destroyed. His head cracks into many pieces and the demon dies. Lord Shiva arrives on the scene and he says many wonderful prayers to the Lord. And the Lord gives the lesson that if one commits such grievous offenses to such great Vaishnavas, such wonderful, powerful personalities like Lord Shiva, that person cannot possibly maintain their life, and they are destroyed by the reactions of their own misdeeds, just as this demon was destroyed. And so, 3 cheers for our hero, Shri Krishna. Our sweet Lord is so smart. Someone made a comment that our sweet Lord is so smart. Yes, he is, and is charming. And so this demon was overtaken by the charm and sweetness of the Lord's words, so much so that he listened to him and used his own boon against himself. It is said within Krishna book that, and my dear friend Hannah just read it, that wherever there is the temple of Lord Shiva, nearby there must be a temple for his wife. And so we know that wherever Lord Shiva is going to manifest, nearby his wife will also manifest. So I know that I can't just speak about the glories of Lord Shiva without speaking about the glories of Parvati Devi. So I wanted to read a piece that I had previously adapted from a beautiful book about the secrets of Navadvip Dham. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote a beautiful book about this, and about all the different islands, and about what they represent in Mayapur. And so this is about the second of those 9 islands. The most peculiar chanting was taking place on Kailash Parvat. Parvati Devi left her chambers to follow the sound of her husband's deep and melodious voice. Gauda, Gauda, Gauda Hari. Gauda, Gauda, Gauda Hari. Gauda Hari. The sound of his damaru drum accompanied his singing. Lord Shiva danced, swaying back and forth, his eyes closed, deep in a trance. His matted locks, covered with ash, swirled around him, looking like a second effulgence. His body trembled with ecstasy, and Parvati watched, stunned for a moment, before she glanced around the courtyard with wide, inquisitive eyes. Nandishwar and the others looked just as confused as their queen. What was this mantra her lord was chanting? She had never heard anything so beautiful before. What or who was this Gauda? At the mere thought of this word, she felt her heart blossom with feelings of love. Goosebumps erupted across her arms, and she closed her eyes in amazement, letting the sound of this divine mantra enter her ears and dance within the courtyard of her own heart. Again and again, Lord Mahadeva chanted his mantra, Gauda Hari, Gauda Hari, Gauda Hari, Shri Gauda Hari. It seemed as though no matter how many times he chanted it, he could never hear enough of this mantra, and he went deeper and deeper into trance. Finally, unable to cage her curiosity any longer, Parvati Devi ventured closer to the Lord, reaching a gentle hand out to him. As she placed her petal-soft hand on his outstretched arm, he froze in the middle of his dance. His dark, intense eyes opened, and he searched the area around them for a moment before settling on Parvati Devi's beautiful face. His features softened with tenderness as he gazed at his wife. A smile curved onto his lips, and he inclined his head to her. Parvati's eyes dropped downward, overcome as she was with a shyness that colored her cheeks a delicate pink. But she could not be distracted from her earlier interest in this new mantra. She had to know her husband's secret. Glancing up at him from under her long lashes, she spoke. Swami, what is this new mantra you're chanting? Until today, I've heard so many mantras and tantras, but nothing like this. My entire heart is melting watching your dancing and hearing this divine mantra. What is this Gora? Just the recitation of this one word somehow makes me feel as though I could chant this name for the rest of eternity. And it was true. Just as Parvati uttered the mantra that Lord Shiva had been repeating, she felt her heart burst with 1,000,000 different emotions. She felt as though the life she had been living up until that point had been a dream, and that with this new mantra, her real life had just begun. Lord Shiva's face lit up with the most majestic, wide smile, and he sighed with joy. He closed his eyes briefly, once more entranced, meditating on the golden form that held his mind and concentration captive for the past hours. Or was it moments? He could not tell. Time was lost in trance, but he held tight to the words of his beloved as an anchor to the external world before his world of devotion and dreams pulled him back into its depth. Forcing his eyes open as wide as they would go, Mahadeva led Parvati Devi to her seat at the foreground of the courtyard. With his hands on her shoulders, he guided her gently to her seat before he took his own next to her. When he gazed upon her face again, his smile was full of secrets. Because you are the divine energy of the Supreme Lord himself, and the partial expansion of the Supreme Goddess Sri Radha, I will now explain the crest jewel of all truths and the greatest secret I know. Lord Shiva glanced back and forth, sweeping the courtyard for any he might have deemed unworthy to hear of this incredible secret he was about to divulge to the other half of his soul. Once satisfied, he continued in a voice no more than a whisper. Accepting the mood of ultimate devotion, the mood of Srimati Radharani, the Supreme Lord will descend in the age of Kali Yuga as the Golden Lord. He will appear as the son of Sachi Devi, and shining like a bright golden jewel, intoxicated with his pastimes of chanting the holy name in kirtan, he will distribute the nectar of divine love to the entire universe. I cannot even imagine the terrible fate for one who doesn't taste a drop of this flood of love for God. His life is completely wasted. Just remembering the promise of my Lord that he will come, I am drowning in an ocean of divine love. I want to give up all patience and run to the city of Navadvip, build a simple hut, and spend the rest of my days worshiping that golden Lord. True to his own word, Lord Shiva was thrumming with excitement. He could no longer stay seated and jumped up from his seat, swaying again and crying out the name of Gaura Hari. Parvati watched him, perplexed as his words created a constant mantra within her heart. What was the fate of one who did not catch the tidal wave of that flood of love? Their life was wasted. Parvati's heart clenched painfully, and taking advantage of her husband's spontaneous dive into his meditation on Lord Gaura, Parvati immediately ran from their abode in Kailash and traveled as fast as she could to the city of 9 islands, Navadvip. Arriving at the second of the 9 islands, Parvati Devi decided that it was there that she would stay and meditate upon Lord Gaura until she could see him face to face. Such unwavering and fixed determination had not been seen since the times that she had sat in severe penance to gain Mahadeva as her own husband. She would do anything in order to see the Lord. She had to. Her entire existence was at stake. In a small hut, she sat completely still, her eyes closed to everything around her, uttering the vibration of the Lord's name that she had heard from Lord Shiva. All was still and quiet around her, except for the constant sound of her meditation. Goda, 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 Goda. Deeper and deeper she went, meditating on Lord Shiva's brief description of the Supreme Lord with the color and mood of Parvati Devi's own goddess, Sri Radha. What an exquisite form that must be! Parvati Devi yearned with all her heart to see that most beautiful and magnanimous form. She burned within her heart to see the jewel that had never been seen before, giving a gift that had never been given before. Her heart overflowed with a feeling of mercy and grace. Her face felt warm, and Parvati Devi opened her eyes. Before her stood the most beautiful person she had ever seen. His body was the color of molten gold, with an effulgence which was even brighter. His arms were very long and graceful, reaching nearly to his knees. His curly black hair framed his majestically sweet face. His eyes were wide and reddish like the petals of a lotus, but were filled with unshed tears of the deepest emotions. And through it all, his entire body vibrated and trembled with divine, ecstatic love. Love like Parvati Devi had never felt before radiated from him like a second, even brighter effulgence, filling the entire space and nearly overwhelming her. She realized at that moment that she was still murmuring his name, Goda, Goda, Goda. Her voice was choked with emotion and the name was barely audible, but she couldn't stop. There was no doubt about who stood before her. Parvati pressed her forehead to the ground at his feet, which felt like the shelter of all the universes, and once she found that shelter, she could no longer hold back her despair. Tears fell unchecked from her eyes, and her body was racked with heart-wrenching sobs. She trembled with the force of her sorrow, but the sound of the Lord's voice slowly broke her out of that deep, dark place. "O Parvati, why have you come here? What is the cause of these tears and this sorrow?" He extended his long arms out to her, and Parvati Devi felt that with those two strong arms he could hold the entire universe. He was the support and maintenance of everything, everywhere. Parvati had firm faith that if anyone would be able to help her, the Lord of her heart could, and out of his unimaginable kindness, surely he would. "O Lord of the universe, although you are merciful to anyone, everyone, this mercy is the cause of my distress. You have given me jurisdiction over all living beings who turn away from you. You have given me the material world as my kingdom, and it is you who have given me the task of keeping those living entities entangled in material conditioning. I must keep the living entities bound in the material world. I am illusion personified. But in this work, I have been cheated out of the most priceless gift of divine love that you have now come to inundate the world with. It is said that wherever there is Krishna, there is no Maya, no illusion. Because of this promise, I must always remain in the material world, outside of your spiritual realm. But now you have come to turn the entire material world into your spiritual abode. How will I ever see your pastimes? How will I ever receive your mercy? If I am bereft of this great treasure of divine love, then my entire existence is forfeit. If you cannot offer me a way, then I am completely without hope." Having expressed her heart's deepest desires, Parvati Devi again let her head fall at the lotus feet of Lord Goda. She delicately took the dust from his lotus feet and placed it in the parting of her hair, which was usually decorated with the bright red vermilion powder which signified her divine marriage to Lord Shiva. It was now decorated with the jewel-like dust from the lotus feet of the Lord, as he was her ultimate Lord and Master. The Lord smiled a smile full of compassion and sweetness. That sweetness melted the heart of Parvati, and she held her breath as she awaited his next words. His deep voice was as soothing and gentle as the all-pervading quiet of snowfall on Mount Kailash. "O Supreme Goddess, as my energy, you are no different from me. My divine energy takes two forms. Within the spiritual world, Sri Radha is the original form of my internal energy. When my divine energy manifests its external feature within this material world, Sri Radha, the Supreme Feminine, expands herself and is represented by you. Without you, my pastimes could not be accomplished, for you are Yoga Maya in the spiritual world. Your assistance is necessary to enhance my Leela, my pastimes. You are actually never separated from me, but because of your love, you have taken on such service just for my sake. Here in this material world, you are Mahamaya, the goddess of illusion and queen of this realm. But here in Navadvip, I have a special task for you. The Lord had a special gleam in his eyes, and at the mention of this special service, Parvati lifted her face to concentrate fully on the beatific face of her Supreme Master. Here in Navadvip, in Bengal, this holy land shall be yours to protect. Please stay here with your dear husband, Lord Shiva, and protect my divine realm. All those who are not devotees of mine at heart should not be given access to this place. They may be able to enter with their bodies, but their minds and hearts should be restricted from understanding the true nature of this place. In addition, those who are my devotees in their hearts, you should guide them closer to me. You have the great responsibility of protecting my most sacred abode. Having said this, the Lord then disappeared from her view. Parvati now cried tears of relief and gratitude. She could now understand the importance of Lord Gaura's words. She was never away from him. Although it was said that wherever there was Krishna, there could be no Maya, through the blessing of her most merciful Lord, she now understood the full nature of who she was. Once again, taking the dust of Lord Gaura's feet upon her head, she looked at the beautiful place that would become her new home. With immense love blooming in her already full heart, she pressed her palms together and raised them to her head in salutation. There was much to be done. The Lord was coming. Because Parvati Devi placed the dust of the Lord's lotus feet on the part in her head, Simanta, she became known as Simantini Devi and is worshipped on the island known as Simantadweep, which gained its name from this beautiful pastime between Parvati Devi and Lord Chaitanya. Because Maya Devi herself has been instructed to protect this spiritual land of Navadvip, some great teachers are of the opinion that this is why the land is called Mayapur, or the city of Maya Devi. She is the mistress there and is worshipped as Prodamaya, along with her beloved Lord Shiva. They are able to delude those who would blaspheme the Lord and the devotees, but are also able to guide the devotion of those who are serious about their loving relationship with Lord Gaura. I offer my obeisances to Maya Devi, goddess of illusion, for those who have forgotten their relationship with the divine, but who is a necessary protector of the divine pastimes for those who are always engaged in loving play with our dearest Lord, and who only acts according to the grace of Shri Krishna. I pray to cultivate true devotion in my heart, so that Simantini Devi will see fit to guide me closer to her very own Lord Gauranga. This is the greatness of our dear friends. These great personalities who become like spiritual masters to us. Lord Shiva is often described as the spiritual master of the entire universe. Why? He controls this material world. He controls Parvati Devi, who is the mistress of this entire material world. But why else is he the spiritual master? Why is he the best friend of all of us living entities? Because he knows the nature of Shri Krishna. He knows the nature of Lord Gaura Sundar, who beautifully has taken up the task of coming to save everyone, inundating the world with the priceless gift of divine love, which is never given as freely as it is right now. we can all help. We have the benediction of also spreading this beautiful love of Gora, this beautiful divine love that Lord Gaurasundar took up within his own heart. He gave us this beautiful Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the same mantra that Lord Gora deemed the most valuable of all. It is often this mantra that even Lord Shiva himself likes to meditate on and likes to chant in his abode of Kailash. He holds beautiful sankirtans. He holds beautiful kirtans with all of his associates. And it is said that Parvati Devi claps along and she spurs on her Lord in his ecstatic dancing. These are the real glories of Lord Shiva. On days when we glorify great Vaishnavacharyas, great teachers, great personalities, great lords, we want to give them something that will please them. And as we know, Lord Shiva doesn't actually like to be praised himself. But what pleases him? His connections to Lord Krishna. His connections to the devotees. His role as the great protector of our bhakti, our devotion. Let us all take shelter of the greatest protector. Let us take shelter of our best friend. Let us take shelter of the one who is eager and ready to do anything for the Vaishnavas, even if it means swallowing poison. Even if it means great risk to his own life, he is ready to do anything to protect the devotion of great souls. We have been given this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. We should give it to others. We should chant it. And we should take shelter of these great souls and pray to them to protect our devotion. Pray to them to protect our hearts. Not for material boons which they might be obliged to give, but will give them no joy. What gives Lord Shiva joy? Protecting our bhakti, giving us bhakti, associating with devotees and hearing about his own worshipful Lord. So let us give joy to his heart by coming together, speaking together, and meditating on these wonderful pastimes. Yes, Gopeshwar Mahadev. He is known as Gopeshwar. He is the protector of Vrindavan Dham. He is the protector of the intimate pastimes of Radha and Govinda. And there is a verse that glorifies him as such, as the very doorkeeper to Vrindavan pastimes, to the beautiful Braj Bilas. So, I have to end with that verse. And the verse is really beautiful. Vrindavana vanipate jaya soma soma mole sanandana sanatana naraditya Gopishwara brajavilasi yugangri padme Prema prayacha nirupadi namo namaste Namo namaste Namo namaste Gopishwara brajavilasi yugangri padme Prema prayacha nirupadi namo namaste Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki jai. Shri Parvati Mahadev ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Thank you all so much. I will see you again tomorrow, where we will do more reading and storytelling. I'm already looking forward to it. See you again soon.